Okay, so the last lesson we're going to look at is all about milk production and lactation. Okay, so this is going to be the last lesson for this term, and yeah, hopefully it's kind of an easy one, and and also it's a fun one. So yeah, I hope you guys like this one. So anyway, so after we looked at reproduction in so much detail, and after the parturition has happened, meaning the giving birth of the calf, now obviously the cow has to give milk to the calf. So that's going to be your lactation as well. So the milk production is about producing milk inside the cow's body, and then lactation is where the milk is released from the cow so that the calf can actually drink the milk and, yes, get all the nutrients it needs for growing, at least for the first 8 months, which is very important for that calf to get it before they start eating roughage grass and so on. So they have to drink it. Okay, so we have to look at a couple of terminologies, so certain words that has to do with lactation and milk and so on. So the first one is lactation itself. So what it is the secretion of milk from the mammary glands. So meaning this is literally where milk is released from the udder of the cow. So milk is secreted, but specifically from the mammary glands. The mammary glands are those specialized little organs, I want to say, inside the udder of the cow that produces and releases the milk. Okay, so that's your definition for lactation. Then your lactation period, this refers to the time frame. So this is as to time. So time frame wherein the mother secretes the milk from parturition until the weaning of the calf. So again, parturition is again the birth of the calf. So basically that time frame between where the calf has been born, it's now alive outside of the body of the cow, until weaning. So weaning is when the calf stops drinking from the cow. So this is usually around, in nature, it will be around a year for the cattle until she calves again, until she gets a new baby. Then she kind of kicks the old one and says, you're big enough, you don't have to drink milk anymore. But for farmers, generally, it depends on the farmer, but it can be anywhere between 6 months to 8 months. Sometimes you want your calf to drink as much milk as possible for as long as possible because they will be bigger and stronger. But sometimes some farmers wean them at 6 months because they have to go to the slaughterhouse, or they want to slaughter a cow, or whatever. It depends on what the needs are of the farmer. So sometimes 6 months, other times 8 months. So this period is literally from when the calf is born, it drinks milk, up until it stops drinking milk. So that's your lactation period. Then thirdly, the dry period, as the name kind of says, the cow is going to be dry, so that it'll stop producing milk. So the time frame from the end of lactation, after weaning has happened, to the next calving, so when it gives birth again. So when the first calf has stopped drinking, obviously the cow then stops producing milk, and then it will create more milk as soon as the next calf is born. So that's your dry period. It's kind of like the resting period for the cow, for her body to regenerate, or the udder to regenerate for the next time she has to produce milk. Okay, the last one is milk ejection, also known as the let-down process. Okay, sometimes they only refer to this as the let-down process. You have to remember this has to do with milk. And milk ejection specifically is milk is forced out of the alveoli. We're going to look at the structure now. Out of the alveoli inside the udder of the cow into the gland and the teat cavities. So in the next slide, we're going to look at all the different structures. But basically, the alveoli are these specialized areas inside the udder of the cow that produces the milk. And then it goes from the alveoli into the gland area and the teat cavities of the udder right before it is released outside the teat. So when the calf drinks it, it goes from the udder into its mouth. Okay, so let's quickly look at the internal structure of the udder. So in this side, we have an enlarged udder. So this is where we can see, here's the 4 teats on the outside of the cow. The cow. And this is your udder. And basically now what we're going to look at is the inside of one of these, inside of the teat area and inside one of the compartments, I want to say, of the udder. This is the entire udder, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4 compartments. So if you use a little bit of imagination, this is going to be this one compartment right over here. Let's start with the basic. Here we have the teat area. The teat opening at the bottom, this is where the milk goes out into the mouth of the calf, and you have your teat cavity right here. Then we have a gland right here where the milk usually gets stored temporarily until the calf drinks or forces it out into his mouth. So this is your gland cavity. This is the milk tube that links your cavity with the alveoli. Okay, so this entire structure here, is the lobe, the entire thing together. Each one of these butterfly looking or flower petal looking things are called a lobule. And right on the inside of each of these lobules, let's look at this one as an example. Inside this lobule, all these, it looks like air spaces, the open white circles, are called alveoli. This is plural, so meaning more than one. And one of these little, in this case, looks like a hole, but it's actually a small organ, a small compartment, an alveolus. Similar to what we've looked at in the lungs of humans. In our lungs, we've got alveoli, that's where we can breathe. It exchanges carbon dioxide and oxygen, if you guys remember. But in this case, this alveoli inside the udder of the cow does not do gas exchange. It actually creates milk. So basically what happens, we start at the top part, if my mouse will work. So from the alveolus, milk is produced. It comes out of the lobule, out of each of these lobules, and into your milk tube. As soon as the calf starts sucking, it goes from alveolus into the milk tube, into the milk of the gland cavity in this case, and it's stored a little bit. And then as soon as the calf starts sucking very strongly, it leaves the gland cavity into the teat cavity and then into the mouth of the calf. And it leaves the teat through the teat opening. Okay, so basically I want you guys to be able to recognize this picture. You don't have to be able to sketch it. They can give you this sketch or a similar one. Usually theirs will be a little bit different because I got this from the internet. So usually they will use something else. But then ask you, so okay, so they'll give you some of these labels. You'll see the word milk tube maybe and teat opening. So then as soon as you see the word teat, obviously you must think, milk, okay, well, I'm looking with udder. And then they can maybe leave out this word and then ask you label this area. So you must be able to label basically the inside structure or the internal structure of the udder. Either label it or they can give you the picture and then ask you questions about it. So meaning what happens over here, what happens in the teat cavity, what happens in the alveolus. This is basically the most important part because the milk is produced from inside the alveoli. And yeah, basically as a group, the lobe. Okay, so that's what you guys have to know here. Then quickly, the milk injection or the let down process, it happens in two main steps. Yes, you guys have to know this. So the first step is milk synthesis. If you remember from last year when we looked at protein synthesis and the chemistry and so on, as soon as you see the word synthesis, it means the creation of something. So in this case, milk is created. So, creation of milk occurs in the alveoli under the influence of enzymes and the presence of blood, because again, the blood brings nutrients to the udder, so that's where all the nutrients are to produce the milk, and certain enzymes, which are specialized proteins, they create the milk inside the alveoli, so that you guys have to remember. Then the second one, just for interest sake, you don't have to remember all the percentages, but just know what's inside cow's milk. Basically, it's water, it's lactose, which is a sugar, it's milk sugar. It has fat in there, it's got protein, which is very good for the calf, and also minerals. So basically, I ordered this or arranged this from most to least. So mainly, basically, your cow's milk is water, and then a little bit of sugar and the rest. But again, you can see it's very important for the calf because it does get like protein and minerals that's really, really needed for the calf. Then thirdly, the synthesis occurs between milkings, which makes sense because as soon as the calf drinks, all the milk is being released, or excreted from the cow. So at that point, the udder can't really make anything. So in this case, as soon as the calf has stopped drinking, and now the cow is eating grass again, getting in more nutrients and drinking water and whatever, now the udder can actually make the milk. Okay, so then the more milkings occurs, the more times the calf actually drinks, the more milk will be produced. Makes sense? Because the body is being stimulated to make more milk as soon as the milk leaves the udder. Then also higher nutritive value of feed creates more milk. This means the better food the cow gets with more nutrients in it, the better the milk will be, which is obvious. Okay, then also pregnant cows will produce less milk because the nutrients is divided between the milk production and the fetus production. So again, a pregnant cow, yes, she will start producing some milk, but it's going to be much less because some of the nutrients now has to go to the production of the fetus, because now the fetus, the young baby, is still growing inside her. So then the second process, or the second area, is called milk injection. So after the milk has been created, now it must be released from the body. So the laydown process is influenced by two hormones. The first hormone is oxytocin. Oxytocin right here. It releases milk into the udder, so it helps with the laydown process. So it releases the milk into the gland cavity specifically, so that the cow eventually, the calf, can get it into its body. Then it released into the body when the calf is suckling. So as soon as the calf starts drinking, oxytocin causes the milk to go from the alveoli into the gland cavity. Then the second hormone that can influence basically milk ejection is adrenaline. So you guys remember adrenaline is that fight or flight response where the hormone is released into the body so that the cow or the animal, or even us, we have more energy and we can run away from maybe a bad situation and so on. So again, if a cow maybe sees a predator or is in a stressful situation, it will release adrenaline, but it's not very good for milk ejection. So it counteracts the effect of oxytocin. So whereas oxytocin allows the milk to be released into the mouth of the calf when it suckles, it counteracts this effect, meaning in this case the milk will not get released. So it's released into the body, the adrenaline, when the cow is stressed. So as soon as the cow is stressed, basically, no milk will be released. That's basically what adrenaline does. So adrenaline is bad for milk ejection. Oxytocin is good for milk ejection. Okay, then we have to talk about colostrum. Okay, colostrum is basically also milk, but it's a very specialized milk. So here it says milk produced during the first 3 days after calving. Just for interest sake, this happens in humans as well. Most animals that have mammary glands, your mammals. So colostrum is produced in the first 3 days. Then after that, day 4, the milk becomes normal white milk, the milk we associate when we think about milk. So basically your colostrum is yellow in color. Why? Because special beta carotene is released as well as antibodies from the mother's body. So this type of milk is actually very, very important for the calf. And now we're going to look at a couple of reasons why at the bottom here. So it's high in the mother's antibodies, as we just saw in the definition. And why is antibodies so important? It strengthens the immune system of the calf. This is very important because this calf has just been born now into the world. It doesn't know viruses and bacteria and things that can damage its body. So now it gets antibodies from the mum so that it has a good immune system so that it can survive. Secondly, it's also high in energy. So this type of milk for those first 3 days has a lot of protein in it. It has a lot of sugars in it for high energy. So it aids the calf in temperature regulation. That's why this is so important, because now again the calf has been inside the mum's body, protected from temperature changes and so on as well, and now it's outside where it's colder probably, so it has to regulate its temperature, and also it has to move around, so it needs more energy to move. Then also thirdly, the colostrum has a laxative effect. So again, anything that has a laxative effect makes the stomach go very quickly. So meaning all the food inside, you can maybe get a runny tummy where all the food moves out of the digestive system and is defecated out very, very quickly. So it clears out the calf's digestive tract or the digestive system. This is very important because we don't want the young calf to actually be constipated. So the body or the pooping system must start working so that the calf can be healthy. Then also fourthly, it's very rich in minerals, the colostrum. So again, we saw normal milk is kind of low in minerals, 0.7%, but in this case, a lot of minerals. And lastly, also it's very rich in fat-soluble vitamins, so very important vitamins for the animal as well, again to help immunity and so on, and for it to be healthy. And just for interest sake, here we actually see what colostrum looks like. Here it is in liquid form, so it's actually yellow. So again, the beta carotene makes it more yellow. and this is just a powdered form of this. So you actually get this from health shops and so on, because we can actually also eat the colostrum of cows. So they use this for like a vitamin supplement or something for us as well. So the calf gets it in liquid form, but if you dry this and so on, it can become a powder format. Okay, so then second to last slide, we just have to talk about the lactation curve. In the exams, they love asking you guys about the lactation curve, so please take a moment or two to study this slide, and also the same graph is in your textbooks, so this is very, very important. So the lactation curve itself, what is it? It's one lactation period. Remember, we said the lactation period is from the moment of birth of the calf, when milk is produced, until the time when the calf stops drinking. So that's one lactation period. So one lactation period basically is known as the lactation curve. It shows us what is being produced inside the milk for this one lactation period of a cow. Okay, so the first bullet there, peak milk production occurs between weeks 6 to 8. So here we can see basically the milk yield tells us how much milk is created. So at the start, the milk, a lot of milk is created fine, but it peaks, come on mouse, it peaks right around, if you go down here, the amount of weeks it shows at the bottom here. This is 2 weeks, let's say. This is about, what was it, 4, 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So this shows increments of 4, 4, 4, 4. So here we have at 6 weeks, go all the way up, 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 up. That's basically where it peaks. So I said around 6 to 8. Basically, it's 6 to 8 over here. Okay, so this is when most milk is produced. And as you can see, as the weeks goes on, the milk actually decreases the amount of milk that is produced, and the amount of fats and proteins. The colostrum has a lot of fat and protein and so on. That's why this peaks here. This is when colostrum is produced. But then all of a sudden, as the normal milk kicks in, the fat content and the protein content quickly decreases just for a moment as everything stabilizes, and then as the milk production actually starts to decrease as the calf becomes older and needs less milk, the fat content and the protein content actually increases slightly. So this is also known as your butter fat content. They usually talk about butter fat. There's butter fat in milk. When you separate the liquid from the solid, the butter fat is going to be your solid. So the fats and protein slightly increases because we want the calf to get more nutrients, but the cow then eventually starts making less and less milk. Why? Because here her dry period will start. Let's say this is usually when the weaning starts, around week 45, thereabouts. So then the calf stops drinking and no more milk will be produced. So here onwards will be your dry period. Okay, so basically milk production occurs between week 6 to 8, the peak one, the peak milk production. And as milk production decreases, the butter fat or protein content increases. This I want you guys to remember. So they will basically, what I just explained about this graph, they will give you the graph and ask you, please interpret it. What does it mean? So on. Okay, so what it's just showing here on this side is your milk production, how much milk is produced, and here also the percentage. So again, just shows you the percentage of the fat and the percentage of the protein is increasing on this side. Okay, and at the bottom they show us the weeks. So the weeks after parturition, this is basically how old the calf is. Calf is now 2 weeks old, 10, 18, 26, 34, 42, and like I said, the dry period happens here when the calf is about 45 weeks old. Okay, the very last slide quickly, the lactation cycle. So we looked at the lactation curve for one lactation period, and now just lastly the lactation cycle is multiple lactation periods of one cow. So meaning as the cow grows older, and maybe it has a calf every year. So let's say this cow has 8 calves. So she's going to be pregnant for 8 years and have every year she's going to have a calf. So she will have, in her lactation cycle, she will have 8 lactation periods, for an example. Okay, so the lactation curve itself, it starts immediately after calving. So as soon as she's got her first calf, now her lactation cycle starts. And let's take the example of the one that has 8 calves. At the end of when the 8th calf stops drinking, that'll be the end of her lactation cycle if she doesn't have any other babies after that. Okay, so that's her lactation cycle throughout her lifetime as a lactation cycle. So every lactation cycle lasts about 300 days. Oh, sorry, that's incorrect. It means lactation period, sorry. Every lactation period, remember, for one calf lasts about 300 days, because remember, a year is 365 days, so this is for one calf. The lactation period lasts 300 days. Thirdly, milk production starts low during the first lactation period, so the first time she has a calf, the milk production will be low because she's still young and not producing a lot of milk as the first time. Makes sense. Then with each lactation period, every time she goes through this lactation period, every time she has a calf, milk production steadily increases. Every time she's got a calf, it steadily increases because now her body is fit and it can produce more milk. Then lastly, milk production unfortunately then decreases again as the cow becomes older. So by the time, they say usually around 6 years, but let's take the example again of this cow that has 8 calves. So then she'll be about 8 years, probably not 8 years old, because you want the cow to calf at about 2 years old to be old enough. But anyway, but about the time she's about 6 years old or 8 years old, now she's had 8 calves, and now her body is starting to get old. She is going to produce less and less milk from now on. It makes sense. I mean, it's how we start out young. We don't know what our body doesn't know what to do. We do it a couple of times. We become fit in doing this. Especially with a cow, she can produce more milk now because her body is used to it. But again, as soon as we become older or she becomes older, the body starts to age, and now the body can't do this production of milk as good as it used to. So then the production becomes less and less. Okay, so that's basically it, guys. Yeah, please go through all the slides. Please go through your textbooks when you guys study. The slides are just here as an aid, but please, you must go through your textbooks. Like I said, at least read through the textbook once. Then study the slides intensively, and any other definitions, aspects, and things in the textbook, you nitpick what you want to study twice or 3 times. But please read through the entire thing at least once. Okay, that's the end of this session.